Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with David Greenwalt. With us today is a certified wellness coach, fitness expert, and author, David Greenwalt, a husband, father, police officer, gym owner, competitive state-level bodybuilder, and powerlifter. In 1997, at age 32 and a body weight of 235 pounds, David discovered an evidence-based approach for getting off his own 50 excess pounds and keeping it off for 25 years and counting. Since 1999, through his company, Leanless Lifestyle University, David has been helping student members from every walk of life get the truth and strategies to lose excess fat one more time for the last time. Today was an awesome conversation. We talked about, is it your willpower that's lacking when everything goes sideways, when you're trying to eat correct and be on a plan? Or is it calories in, calories out? What's missing when that doesn't work? What is the real driver of the obesity epidemic? Why eat less and exercise more doesn't work? Why bumper sticker diets set you up for failure? And why real food really matters. It's estimated that 20% of industrialized populations are trying to lose weight on any given day. There are thousands of diet plans and programs. Yet in the US, the prevalence of obesity is up from 15% in 1970 to 43% today. Why? Is it because over the past 50 years, people have forgotten to eat less and exercise more? A progressive willpower deficiency? Memory impairment? Have we forgot about moderation in all things? Basic math, has it become too complex? No clue how to count calories or portions? Over this period, have our genes changed to any great extent? Then what? What explains the alarming rise in obesity worldwide, and how do we help those suffering from decades of ineffective messaging and outright lies? So today, David talks about that and so much more. I think this is great to have right around the holidays, so you can think about your health and your strategy moving forward into the new year. I think this is perfect timing for this episode. We talked about much more, so make sure to tune in today. This was a great episode. I think you're really going to love it with David Greenwalt. Without further ado, we're diving into this episode with the one and only David Greenwalt. I'm excited to have David Greenwalt on the Sisterhood of Sweat today. Welcome, David.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, what you were in Illinois. So tell me, how is it over there? Is it cold? Is it snowy? Is it warm?
You know, it's if it's okay if I say, you know, the time that we're doing this, the day after Thanksgiving, and fortunately no snow. It's cool, but it's going to be in the 50s today, which is good for us. It's about probably normal for this time of year, low 50s, sunny. You know, I can't complain for this time of year. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
And what did you have for Thanksgiving yesterday?
So I had turkey, I had ham, I had mashed potatoes, I had stuffing, I had a roll, I had dessert. So for me, I handle Thanksgiving, you know, you got to know yourself. And so for me, I handle Thanksgiving where I have what I want, not, you know, I'm beyond worrying about what someone else might want me to have. I have what I want, and I have the things that are worth it to me. And so if it's not worth it, yeah, you know, I'm real big on a splurge needs to be worth it. You know, I don't want to have a splurge and feel like, oh, I wasted, you know, 800 calories on that, you know.
And it was awful, and it wasn't good.
And it wasn't good. Like, oh, I wasted, you know. and I don't beat myself up for it, but I don't like it. And then, but today is normal. Today's just back at it.
And so why do you say, because some piece this morning I had somebody saying they felt terrible because they just ate and ate and ate and they felt like they were weak.
Yeah.
They felt like they failed, but maybe that was some unrealistic expectations. But why is that your willpower, or what's lacking when everything goes sideways like that?
Well, I would have to, I'd have to talk to the person to kind of find out what their history is. And I'd want to know where they are in their journey. Are they someone who has been on the struggle bus for getting the first 5 pounds off? Are they 50 pounds down and they've got 50 to go? Are they down 60 and they've got 5 to go? All of that makes a difference. I look at this process as having an overarching umbrella, what I call a transformational maturity. Okay. And within that transformational maturity, it's kind of funny. I had no intention of kind of talking about this, but what I think it's a great question and it lets me do it. So thank you. Because in transformational maturity, I look at like where someone might be from this perspective, and it really helps me kind of think about it. And it also helps my clients think about it. And I'm really, really big on, this is not about putting a label on somebody and having someone say, okay, I'm going to put a label on you, therefore it's time to feel bad. It's like, this is just kind of where we are. And we're going to progress and we're going to get to this other level. But is this person from a transformational maturity perspective in toddler phase? So if they're in a toddler, or I'm sorry, infant phase being the first, are they in infant phase where they can do nothing themselves, where they can't take care of themselves at all? They 100% need somebody else to take care of them, guide them, give them everything, nurture them, do everything. And of course, I'm thinking of this with them realizing they're an adult, but in the transformational, spectrum, they're an infant. Okay, that's just where they are. Or are they a toddler? And you think about a toddler, and you're like, well, they're kind of waddling around. I've got grandchildren that are toddlers now. And, they're waddling around, they're kind of stumbling, they're kind of figuring things out. They can do it, they can feed themselves kind of, sort of, they're messy, but they can do it. And so is someone at a toddler phase, or are they at a teenager phase, teen phase, where they can do a lot of things, and at the teen phase, they might be a little rebellious. They might think they know a little more than they do. They may think they have it all figured out and that the parent or the whoever doesn't know as much as the teen thinks. All right, so they're in teen phase. Are they in the adult phase where you're like pretty self-sufficient? You got most of it figured out by now, but you may still have some emotional struggles because you still got maybe a 2-year-old in you that throws temper tantrums from time to time, even though you're an adult. And then beyond that, I call it the wise adult. And that's just where you're just at peace. Exciting things can get you excited, but maybe not as excited as they would have when you were a teenager, but that can be a good thing. But also the lows don't get you as low. You're just kind of riding, these minimal waves. You still have ups and downs, but typically not as high a peak, not as deep a valley. That's the wise adult. So again, just infant, toddler, teen, adult, wise adult. So as I think about the person you described, they might be in that toddler phase. I don't know. They might be in the adult phase. I don't know. But here's the thing, and I won't make this too long, but let me just say this because this is important.
I was just thinking about it, what I thought.
Go ahead. Tell me.
I think they're in between toddler and adult.
So would they be teen, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere right in there.
Because, when I think about it, I think about Thanksgiving. I don't really feel the urge to jump off and just have to have all this stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't I don't. And if I'm going to have something, I'm like, okay, yesterday I said, okay, can I have double? Because this is the first time we'd ever went to a restaurant. Okay. My mother-in-law didn't feel well. She didn't want to get everyone sick. And it was just last minute. I said, let's go to Seasons 52. So they're having Thanksgiving. They had turkey, they have green beans, they have butternut squash. I said, can I have double of that? and I don't want the gravy, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce.
Yeah.
And then they had a little tiny mini dessert. I thought, oh, I'll let my husband eat that if he wants it or
Yeah.
whatever. So what did I have? What was my treat? I had a cocktail, and it was gin and white cranberry with sage. That was my one treat. Now, the way I look at it is, though, if I wanted to have whatever on Thanksgiving, I would. I
Yeah.
would have it. And then I wouldn't weigh myself the very next morning. I would just go back on my normal eating. And then maybe in 3 days, I would see where I was at.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think you said you just competed recently again. So, I mean, you're just really, advanced, and that would be representative. That mindset is just representative with regard to the transformation sphere, because I say it that way because we can have other elements of our life where you or I could be a toddler.
Oh,
right.
I'm sure I fall in that status.
Right. I mean, it's like, yeah, in the transformational sphere, we might be, and also in another sphere as adults, we could be the wise adult, but we might be a toddler somewhere else. We can be at all these places in various
Yeah.
spheres.
Oh my gosh.
In the
100%.
transformational sphere, there's no doubt that's representative of wise adult. No doubt about it.
Sometimes my husband will say, mature.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So within that umbrella, though, with regard to that person you were talking about, there can be these same levels in the nutrition sphere, still under the transformational umbrella.
Yeah,
but in the
makes
nutrition,
sense.
they can be an infant in nutrition. You can have to think of a client, think of your one of your students or whatever that is an infant or a toddler on nutrition, but they're a wise adult on exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They just hammer down on the exercise. They've got it. They don't miss. They're right in there. They're not, it's not like they're, exercise purgers, or I don't mean that, but I just mean like they're just rock solid on their exercise. They just do it.
Yeah.
All right. And then when it comes to, so there's a nutrition leg, there's an exercise leg, and then there's actual an emotional fitness leg.
Mm-hmm.
And within that space, under the transformational umbrella, someone can be an infant emotionally, toddler, teen, adult, wise adult.
Makes sense.
So you got all these three legs that also have these graduations, so to speak. And then there's the big umbrella. So depending on where she was, I would want to say, well, she's here nutritionally, but I know she's here exercise wise, and she's here emotionally. So, okay.
Yeah.
So all we want to do is
mostly adult, I would say. Mostly.
So we just want to build. We want to meet her where she is, not ask too much, but we want to then just continue to build on where she is, from there. So she's not.
I think she's too hard on herself.
Well, there's no question. And that falls into that emotional fitness part where she might be
perfection. Anything less than that is failure in her mind.
Yeah. And that I would not say, and again, no critique of any individual. This is just about trying to improve in that emotional fitness space. I would not say that's wise adult. I would
because
say
it's not about perfection, right?
It's not. Perfection to me is a trap. It's a booby trap. It's a myth. It's a failure waiting to happen. And where I come at it, that particular aspect is exceptional. That exceptional to me is the pinnacle. We're striving for exceptional. Exceptional allows for imperfections. Exceptional is not status quo. Exceptional is not the norm. If we look at society, I'm not really interested in being the norm. The norm
I would
is not
say
healthy.
This person is exceptional. They're exceptional. They're exceptional. Now, what do we do with like some people think that it's all like their willpower, but I think it's more having knowledge is power, and having a strategy that suits your lifestyle is more that's what builds you, to me, your discipline or your willpower or whatever you want to call it, it really isn't willpower, is it?
It's not the way people think of it.
Okay.
I agree with you. Not in the way people think of it. Willpower is a limited resource.
You
And
only have so much of it.
we do. And so is emotional self-regulation. I'd say the better way for me to say it is self-regulation is a limited resource. Willpower it goes hand in hand with self-regulation. The more we have to utilize it, the more we have to say and do and be something in a day that doesn't feel natural to us, the more we tap into self-regulation, and the more we tap into it. It's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people would nod or agree. I see it so often that people can start strong at the start of a day, and by the end of the day, the decisions aren't as good as the day wears on. Part of the reason for that is because they have tapped that self-regulation and willpower so much. It is a limited resource. So willpower is the ability to resist short-term temptation to meet long-term goals. Okay, that's fine. If you've got something that isn't going to take necessarily that long to do, you might just be able to rely on willpower, something that can be handled in a day, something that can be handled in a few days or whatever. But beyond that, and as you know, anybody that wants to create a significant transformation, anybody that wants to strip, whatever it may be, anywhere from 10 pounds to 200 pounds of fat and keep muscle or add muscle or whatever they're doing, it's going to take longer than a few days. It's going to take weeks, months, maybe years. It just depends on what they've got to lose and what their transformation goals are. But when that's the case, we can't rely on willpower. Instead, what I say is we need why power. And
your why. That's exactly right. I was just talking about that in my last podcast.
Why power drives willpower. Pursuing the worthy endeavor, persisting without exception. And it's that without exception that comes from the why. And, Nietzsche said, hundreds of years ago, when the why is strong enough, we find a way, and when it's not, we find an excuse. And I think his actual quote is more like, he or she who has a why can bear any how. So if we have that why,
so good. I love
the
quotes.
how, we will take the time to figure out, we will put the energy into figuring out. And once we do figure it out, we will do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether we feel like it or not. Because it won't be so much, we won't be so reliant on what do we feel like in the moment. Because the why is driving.
Feelings go up and down. You can't base it on that.
No. So if you've got that why, here's the thing too. A point of evidence that I would say that for me helps solidify the why power driving willpower, and not just relying on willpower. People aren't short on willpower. If you ask somebody, how often are you late for work? Most people are going to be like, never. Or they're going to say once in a year or something. It's going to be really, when was the last time, if you've got a young school-age child and you were responsible for picking them up at school, when was the last time you just forgot them? When was the last time, right? When was the last time you just, you blew it off because you weren't in the mood, you were stressed? A parent or whatever, or guardian, whoever would look at you like, are you crazy? Now, that could happen. You could, I get it. But as far as like how often would something like that happen, so limited, so small, it's hard to even measure. Why? Well, why do they go to work on time? We don't know. People that work just normal, you and I are super passionate about what we do, and maybe we could say we're different in that regard. But someone who works a 9 to 5 and likes what they do, but they're not in love with it, they don't always feel like going. They're not in the mood all the time. They've got stress and strife and all these things going on, tiredness, sickness. They go to work sick. Why do they go and they're never late? Because their why for doing it is incredibly strong. They need the income. They like this. They like, all the reasons that anybody works. Their why is incredibly strong. So someone says, I don't have any willpower. Yes, you do. You have a lot of willpower if the why is there. And if it is, that why power will drive willpower. Remember, willpower is the ability to resist short-term temptation to meet long-term goals. So we've got it as long as the why power is there. But if the why power isn't there, for anything that takes a long time, like this, people will run into trouble. So I work a lot with my clients on helping them develop and strengthen their why. We look at it, we revisit it, they put it down in writing.
Yes.
They look at it often. It's a living document. So we're always updating it and we're always making it relevant to the now, because another thing I'll say about it is if someone has to lose 60 pounds, the why that gets the first 40 off isn't the same why that gets the last 20.
Now, there again, everybody knows they need to eat their greens. They need to exercise. They need to get sleep. They should drink water. They know all these things. But what I always learn is I've got to get, as a trainer, a transformation specialist, I have to get to the why. I have to get to what makes them tick. What is the driving force? What is their why? Why do they want it? And I know for myself, it's my driving force. My why is my driving force for my vision and my purpose to reach millions of women. And so when it's hard, when I'm tired, when it's early, when everything doesn't go perfectly, I have to remind myself of my greater vision. And it's the same when it comes to something you want. Why do you want it?
Absolutely.
And you really got to dial that in. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, and I love that you brought out that it isn't just transformation. It's any goal that takes a lot, any goal that takes a long time, any goal that takes a lot of consistency and energy and going against the grain. We can just go along with society's food pushing, and just, all right, that's not going against the grain if we just, constantly are eating junk food, fast food, ultra processed food and all that. But to go against the grain, to go against the tide, so to speak, or just anything that just takes a tremendous amount of just determination and consistency, and just exceptional consistency, like you said, whether it's building a business, reaching a larger audience, no matter what it may be, you've got to have a strong why to do that. Otherwise, there are going to be so many forces working against you and I, or anybody building a business, that if you don't have that why, you just go, I'm out. It was too hard.
And maybe you're afraid to say what that why really is. Sometimes you're afraid of judgment. You're afraid someone's going to judge you because of why you want it.
Yeah.
So don't tell everybody. You don't have to tell everyone. But let me just say that you need to know when you're reaching for any goal, if you truly want to achieve it, what do you want and why do you want it? Because I'm going to go as far to say, if you don't know those two things, you're not going to achieve it or sustain it.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone can't communicate, or in some way, shape, or form, can't clearly communicate why they want to make this transformation, their likelihood of achieving it is quite low. But if they can, I always say your likelihood is much higher. You at least have a real chance.
Right.
But if it's just, they want to lose 60 pounds and they go, I just want to lose a few pounds. Any other reason? Oh boy.
And you definitely get those people.
And you definitely get those people. So
you definitely do.
I work with them to, let's dig deeper. Let's figure out what's going on.
They're not in touch. There's a why. I guarantee you there's a why.
There is. We just have to drill down.
You have to drill it down.
Yeah. And just try to squeeze every drop out of it until they're like, oh my gosh, it isn't just I want to lose a few pounds. It's because I want to do this and this and this and this.
Yeah. And when I had Natalie Jill on the podcast, Natalie Jill Fit, she was like, you have to dial that down 7 layers deep. Like, you think you've got to the why, but you got to keep going, because it all goes back to some sort of how you want to feel.
Yeah.
and why you want to feel it.
Yep.
And so like I just love the whole process of doing that type of work. Now, what are you a believer in calories in, calories out? I'm not necessarily. I think it's what I'm eating, when I'm eating it, and how it's combined. And a whole lot more. A whole lot more.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what's missing when it doesn't work? Like this simple philosophy of calories in, calories out.
yeah. So I say it this way: calories are king, but they're not the only thing. So
It's a great
ultimately,
rhyme.
I mean, it's like it helps me remember
That'll
it too, to
stick
be able
right
to
in your
pass it.
head. Yeah.
But
I like
calories
it.
are king, but they're not the only thing. So when anybody wants to go off on a tangent and they say, well, it's hormones, that's the thing. That's part of it. It's insulin resistance, that's the thing. That's part of it. It's when you're eating. Okay. It's the exact macro ratio. All right. But ultimately, I can get anybody to any healthy weight they want to be if we only could, but we have to wave a magic wand to do this, because if I just say this as it is, people aren't going to do it because it isn't how people are in the real world. But if I could have them eat a particular number of calories per day, I could get anybody to any healthy weight they want, no matter what they were eating.
Right.
That I don't believe in that. That's not the principle that, I mean, I
Right.
believe that is true, but that's a math problem. That only works on paper, in the sense that that's not how people behave. You're not going to say, all right, Dave, you said I could get to any healthy weight I want eating anything, and so therefore I'm going to eat only butter. You can do it. You can do it. If somehow you could wave a magic wand, and I don't want anybody doing this, but if you could wave a magic wand and have someone
I'm just
just eat,
disgusted about thinking eating only
eat
butter.
800 calories of butter a day or whatever, they would get to whatever the healthy weight range is, no matter what weight they are. They could do it. It would be very unhealthy. They would have problems. They would have, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just saying, from a pure calorie perspective, calories are king,
Right.
but they're not the only thing. So we do have to bring in those other components. We do have to bring in macros. We have to bring in meal frequency. We have to bring in nutritional quality. This whole nutritionism, nutricentric approach, where we just look at it from like this particular food-like substance, and I'm careful on using that word, Linda. I'm real careful on saying frankenfood, food-like substance versus real food. But if someone says this food-like substance provides XYZ vitamins and minerals, it provides XYZ macros, it provides XYZ essential fatty acids or amino acids or whatever, that's fine. But that's a nutricentric approach. That's not how I approach it. Not that those things aren't important, but we approach it from, yes, calories matter. Calories are king, in fact, but not the only thing. Now we need to come at it from that nutritional quality perspective, where we want people to really do their best to, in an exceptional way, strive to meet about 90% intake of real food.
And why does real food matter? Why? Like, I think that this is a good point to drive home.
Oh, okay. Yes, absolutely. For so many reasons, because the industrial complex, the industrial additives, all of the chemicals and additives that are used to process real food, that are used to as additives, as preservatives, flavorings, enhancers, emulsifiers, providing various taste and mouthfeel issues, all the things that help the foods on the food-like substances on store shelves reach that bliss point for taste, so that it's more likely to have us become hooked, users rather than consumers. So it's really important that we're eating real food, because we are far more likely, if we're eating real food, to achieve and maintain, a healthy mental state. And so a packaged food that is high in vitamins and minerals, or has a certain amount of fiber or whatever, if it's ultra processed, if it's not real food, we're not supporting ultimately a healthy mental state, because the additives, the industrial ingredients, the ingredients used to process plus what's in it The research more and more and more is showing that with ultra processed food, it is negatively impacting as a society our mental state. Everything from minimally all the way to depression and to true mental disorders. With real food, we get increased energy compared to ultra processed food and work capacity. It's going to be better for optimizing our hormones for health and metabolism. It's better for the gut. Real food is better for the gut compared to ultra processed food. It's better for the immune system. Over and over and over again, we're continuing to see research that ultra processed food is bad for the immune system. Inflammation. Ultra processed food increases inflammation. The other thing with, a huge thing with ultra processed food, again, is because food chemists that are really good at what they do strive to have these ultra processed foods reach this thing called a bliss point, where it's that perfect balance of chemicals. People say it's the perfect balance of sugar, salt, and fat. That's too limited. That's too reductionist. It's the perfect balance of sugar, salt, fat, and chemicals that get the taste and flavor and mouthfeel to be so ideal that we go, whoa, our brains just dopamine hit massively. And we're like, that I want to do again and again and again and again, and not necessarily in a controlled way. I want more of that. So when we're eating real food, it helps us break free of these substances that foster addiction. We're not going to be addicted to real food. So we are going to be addicted, or could be, to ultra processed food. I know there's just like a couple more things that come to my head. So with real food, it reduces what I call nutritional confounding variables. So you're like, what does that mean? A nutritional confounding variable I look at is something where you just scratch your head and you go, why? My calories were dialed in spot on for the last 5 days. My macros were good. I'm meeting the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, fiber, protein. And the scale popped up. What's going on with that? Or what's going on and why I feel the way I do? Or like, a client says, I feel like garbage the next day after having XYZ ultra processed foods at Thanksgiving or whatever. Eating real food reduces those nutritional confounding variables where we go, less scale variance, not zero, but less scale variance. Things make more sense. We feel better more consistently. That makes more sense. And then, it's not least, and it's not even last, but when we're eating real foods, we are more likely to optimize for fat loss if that's our goal, or for maintenance if we are in maintenance. So there's huge reasons for trying, and none of us is going to do it perfectly, but for trying to reach that, to me, 90%. Some people will say 80%. I don't think that's high enough, but 90% real food, which is, I'm going to say, the opposite of what society is doing. I think society has got it flipped. I think they're 90% ultra processed food. The average person, probably not your listener, but the average person is 90% ultra processed food, 10% real food. And I'm asking, goal wise, not like we're going to snap our fingers and do it, but I'm asking, we need to just flip it. And, so anyway, that's
That's
like
a chapter in my book. Stay out of the drive-through, get into the kitchen. And like what I think, like if I go through a drive-through, which would be like a rare occasion,
right?
Rare. Like I'm like, I always look, and this is probably terrible, in amazement. People really go through here and eat. They really order from these fast food places. And I just equate fast food, fast stuff. Like if you're eating everything fried to the hilt and just loaded with a bazillion calories and sugar and white flour and all of the things, it's not healthy. But the biggest experiment I ever ran, because I normally don't do a cheat day, but all of my girlfriends that compete are always talking about what they're going to have after the show and their cheat days. And I thought, all right, I'm going to have a cheat day. It wasn't this year, it's been a while. And I'm going to have a cheat day. And so I did. And what, I ate the brownies, I ate the chips, I ate the stuff. And it's getting towards the end of the day. And I think I was eating cheese puffs or something. And it came to me. I'm like, oh, fake food never satisfies. I could keep eating through
Yeah.
this bag
Yeah.
and still not be satisfied. Real food satisfies and it fills you up.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you rarely overeat. Like if you're on the norm and you're eating, periodically throughout, you're rarely going to eat 2 bags of broccoli. Okay.
No. No.
So like it's the thing is, and it's healthy and it's not a heart attack walking. Like if you're throwing a stick of butter on your vegetables, you just killed them. It's just way too much butter. Like butter, I think is okay. I'll have my grass-fed butter, but like a whole stick, I mean, you gotta have moderation, but like also butter is real food. It is real food. Just like not like a stick on everything.
And obviously I agree with you on that. No, we don't want to stick on of butter on our stuff, but um where the ultra processed food continues, the researchers are really looking at this heavy right now. They're looking at what is the actual impact specifically of ultra processed food compared to real food on all of these parameters: cardiovascular disease, cancer, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, diabetes, mental disorders, you name it, obesity. What is the actual impact? And that's I put more focus on the ultra processed side of things than, don't get me wrong. You heard me say earlier, calories are king, but they're not the only thing. If someone puts a whole stick of butter on the broccoli, it's going to impact total calories. It's not going to work.
You don't need a whole stick.
No.
That's
Right.
the whole point. Why
Right,
are we
right.
putting a stick in the corn, on the broccoli, on the
Yeah.
things that are supposed to be good for you? I'm just
Yeah.
like a little butter, a
Right.
little salt.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
So I love that we're having this conversation right around the holidays when people need to hear it. And I mean, also, when was Crisco ever good for you? I just want to say, Crisco really is in so many cookies, so many cakes. It's in the icing of the bakery cakes. Like I make like the best chocolate cake you ever want to have that you never have to feel guilty for, and you're not going to gain a pound. Red velvet cake, carrot cake. I have all these desserts, but like what I did was I worked on looking at ingredients, real whole food ingredients,
Yeah.
things that are good for you. And I go very paleo, but I'm not putting milk, I'm not putting sugar, I'm not putting white flour. And there's all these alternatives. You could go onto YouTube and you could go onto Instagram and you could find so many great recipes that are delicious. And then like just start experimenting and you'll be like, why was I ever eating Crisco?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's it goes back to, if someone really wants the better, if someone really wants the change, if someone really wants the other side, the more fit side in their life, but they continue to do things that don't seem rational, right? Then we start looking at what's the why, but we also look at something that a lot of people don't look at. So obviously, you and I talked about a lot. We're going to look at the emotional fitness side of things, and we're going to try to shore that up so that we can improve emotional fitness to make better nutrition and exercise decisions. That's fine. That isn't going to work if we don't have a why. So we need the why. We need the emotional fitness. We need to try to keep striving to eat more real food. So the why's got to be there. The emotional fitness is probably going to have to be there, because I can teach you what you need to know about nutrition. I'm just going to exaggerate, in an hour or less. I can teach you what you need to know about exercise in an hour or less. but it's the emotional fitness leg of weight management that's going to keep those two factors on the consistency bus when life has other plans, when it's a stressful day, a long day, a crazy day, a whatever day. And rationally, logically, the nutrition, the exercise components, when those go off the rails, 100% of the time, it's because the emotional fitness track got wonky for one reason or another. Again, emotional fitness was at teenage level, not at wise adult level, whatever. It's not a name calling thing. It's like, this is just where you are. It's
no,
like,
of course not. I mean, but what do you do for these people when they are emotional? They're having a horrible day. I think what it is they're not dealing with the emotions they're having. They're stuffing them down. So like when they're getting emotional, they're angry, maybe sad or frustrated, then they're punishing themselves somewhat by just binging on food.
Right. Yeah. No question about it. Here's the thing. It's the most complex part of this.
Right. It is. Absolutely.
The emotional side is the most complex part. So I'll just say, I know I'm generalizing, but where were any of us growing up? You and I are, again, you and I talked before the show, we're similar. We're we're Gen Xers, or you're right there on the cusp of, whatever, but we're right there. And with that being the case, where is anybody taught really well now in growing up, as things related to focus and gratitude and serenity and control and connection and compassion and aspects of mindfulness and faith and sleep and all of these components I consider emotional fitness components. And so when someone's having that stressful day and they've gone off the rails and this is going on and that's going on, I'm going to use an H.L. Mencken quote, which I just love, which is, we'll come at this a step at a time. We'll come at this with trying to look at what fell apart, and I'm going to try to help my students strengthen that and continue to build on the emotional fitness. I say, I want so many emotional fitness tools in your toolbox that you're a lifestyle ninja. And so that, when I think of a ninja, so to speak, it's like, no matter what comes at you, I want you to be able to pull this tool, just like this. I
love it.
Right? Get that good where you're like, do I feel great with all this stress I have on? No. This isn't about putting just a smiley face on every thing that life throws at you, but it's about bringing down the temperature, bringing down the reaction to more of a response that's more measured, that's more balanced. It's that wise adult level, because you're like, bear with me, I am trying to control too much. That's what's going on. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm whatever. I'm trying to control too much. And we go, all right, so we have that component that we want to, have a reminder. We want to shore up. We want to strengthen. We want to re-acknowledge that there are only certain things that we can control. We need to have the courage to change the things we can, the wisdom to know the difference, but we need to ask for the serenity to see what we can control and what we can't. And then just all the things, that's just one little component, but we want to continue to develop the person from the inside out. And that's how I see a transformation. It's an inside out transformation. So if we grow the inside, and I'm just going to say this because most people are interested in fat loss, we'll grow the inside as we shrink the outside. And not everybody wants to shrink, and I get that, but you know what I mean. So with that,
aren't you growing the inside? Like when you realize there's so many things you can't control. I can't control what you're going to do.
Right.
I can't control what someone else is going to do.
Right.
Or I can't control, like, let's say something bad does happen, but I can control how much energy I give it.
Yeah.
I can control my attitude. I can control my work ethic. I can control what I put in my mouth. I can control how I perceive something. There's so much within our control. So like if we don't focus on the uncontrollables, but we focus on what we can actually, that we have, the tools of what we could actually control, I think that helps you from being out of control.
Absolutely. And and as people realize that, we then, another quote from Viktor Frankl, who was a concentration camp survivor and wrote Man's Search for Meaning, which is just a fantastic classic book. He said, between the stimulus and the response is a space. And within that space, we have the right to choose our response. So there's a stimulus, right? Whatever that may be in life coming at us. And there's a response, our response. Between the stimulus and the response, there really is a space. And, it's been 20 some years ago when I first heard of it. When I first heard someone say, you can choose your response. And I went, I really did. I was like, what are you talking about? No, this happens. And that means I do this.
Oh, choose your reaction too, right?
Yeah, you can choose your response. And I was like, really? Right. Then when I really thought about it, I thought, holy cow. That was, again, probably 25 years ago now or whatever, but it's true. So between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. And in that space, we have the ability to choose our response and what we do with it. So if we don't want to honor that, we just suffer more because the law doesn't change. We can only control what's within us, what's internal to us, or what's within our direct control. We can't, like you said, I can't control you. You can't control me. I can't control, I've got grown kids. I can't control what they do. I can't control so many things. If I try to, then I just suffer more. So being aware of that, I have a choice. I can either suffer more by trying to control everybody and everything else.
Right.
Or I can just be at least somewhat more at peace, which allows me to make better decisions because I'm not as stressed and crazy and mad and angry. And that's the level that I'm going to try and help my clients get to, so they make those better nutrition and exercise choices. Because if I was to ask them, if you were to ask them, do you know right now, after the nutrition coaching we've done and the exercise coaching and the whatever, do you know what, for you specifically, you ought to and want to be eating? Oh, yes, I absolutely do. And you didn't because, and it's going to be, well, because I lost my mind. I was just out of control with emotion. I was super agitated. I was overly angry. I was overly whatever the case may be, stressed. And just zoned out. I just completely just stepped out and didn't honor what I know rationally to be true. So we're all a work in progress. I'm not standing here on some soapbox saying, and I've got every single emotional fitness component figured out, and I am perfect, and not even close. But I'm very aware of them. And I try to implement them in the moment the very best I can and try to keep it so that I am just more measured in how I respond. And that's when my clients get there, their choices are just spot on. And then, of course, we're looking at the why. Oh, the thing I want to say is, back to the real food, is if we try to just do it on calories, if we try to just do it on nutrients and macros rather than real food, where we're doing what we can to reduce at the maximum level the additives and all the chemical agents that are used in processing and added to these food-like substances. If we don't do that, then we've got a strong why. We're working on emotional fitness. We know the nutrition basics. We know the exercise basics. We got our calories and macros. We got a goal. We've got these things in place, kind of the brass tacks basics. But if we're still eating ultra processed foods, we could still be a compulsive overeater. We're more likely to, because ultra processed foods drive that.
You're not eating in a way that keeps you from having cravings, because if you eat sugar, you want more sugar. And so and sugar is hidden in everything. So it's really about finding out, knowledge is power. So if you understand, if I eat a good fat and I have a good carb and I'm eating every 3 to 4 hours, my blood sugar stays stable. then you're not going to have all those cravings that you get when you spike your blood with insulin or caffeine, and then
Mhm.
you have a crash. And I think, like, again, knowledge is power. But I hate to run. I literally have to go. I have somebody
Yeah.
waiting on the other
I was
end.
gonna say, I think I don't know how long it's been. It's gone so fast,
Okay.
but I'm thinking like I think that we went longer than whatever time we had allowed. So
We
it's
could
been
we could
been a
go
joy.
we could go longer. I
I know.
really love talking about this
Same.
topic, and I've really appreciated your insight and enjoyed all of your tidbits. And and it's nice to talk about it in this way. I think a lot of the listeners are going to really enjoy what you've had to say. Where can they find you on social media, and what is your website?
Okay. Uh, I'll give the website stuff first. So lluniversity.com. That's because we're called Leanness Lifestyle University, but that's a mouthful. So I just go lluniversity.com for the website. And as far as social goes, it's either LLU 180 because our first course is called Lifestyle 180. We blend it together. LLU 180 on Instagram. We're just Lifestyle 180. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn. We're on all the Facebook. We're on pretty much all of them. But it's been it really has been a real joy speaking with you, and it's nice to be able to get this message out that I don't think it's gotten out much in this way.
Yeah,
The way you and
I
I.
liked your presentation. It was a lot different, and I enjoy the intellectual part of it all.
Thank you so much. I really
And
appreciate it.
and make sure you guys all check David out on social and leave a review. We like to know what you thought, what resonated with you, and it helps us to get more great guests like David on. So, and I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode. And as always, keep on keeping on, everyone. Bye, everybody.